Welcome everyone to our H-1B training. I'd like to introduce my team. Gwyneth Smith, who's the Senior Associate Director, Hadijah Wilson, Assistant Director, and Jimena Corley, Assistant Director. The training today will be recorded and will be up on our website for your review to use as a resource. And we will answer all questions at the end of the training. We will also be testing your knowledge at the end of the training, and we'll have prizes for 3 of you who answer all the questions correctly. 3 of you will be randomly selected because I'm sure all of you will answer the questions correctly. Hadijah, please go to the next slide. So today's agenda, we are going to review the ISSO website, overview of the H-1B, the Compass Guide. We're going to have some general tips and reminders, and contact information. Next slide, please. And so we do ask that you bookmark our website so that it is readily available to you when you are submitting an application to our office. We will now switch from the PowerPoint to the ISSO website. And I just want to go over some things there, and then Gwyneth will go from there. So today, the website and Compass work side by side. So I'd like to emphasize the importance of using the website as a resource when submitting applications in Compass. From the website, you will be able to link to the Compass guides to direct you through the steps on filing an H-1B application or an H-1B extension. The website provides details about eligibility of the H-1B and encompasses the entire process, including the list of supporting documents which we need. Now I will pass the baton on to Gwyneth, and she will begin the review of the website.
Hello, everyone. All right, so let's take a look at the website. And what we're going to do is we're going to go to where you need to go when you're submitting an H-1B application. So you're going to go to our main page, and then you will go to For Departments, Sponsoring or Extending, and then you'll see at the very top, H-1B Specialty Occupation. So you'll click on that, and then you'll get to our web page. So we are just going to go through this so that you have a very thorough understanding of what is required for your H-1B application. And just so you know, you want to take a look at the website. That is one resource. And then you'll also want to take a look at the guide, which we will go over after we go through the website. So let's talk about sponsoring or extending the H-1B. So the H-1B position must qualify as a specialty occupation. And that requires a theoretical and practical application of a body of highly specialized knowledge and an attainment of a bachelor's degree or higher degree, or its equivalent as a minimum requirement. And it also has to be at a wage that meets the higher of the prevailing wage or the actual wage. The applicant must also hold the required degree in the field of employment. So basically what this means is that both the position and the prospective beneficiary must meet the H-1B eligibility criteria. So as you can see on this page, we have H-1B requirements. We go over before you sponsor, a petition overview, how to sponsor and extend, notifying us of changes in employment, before extending, how to extend, and then additional related information. So one thing I did also want to mention about our website is if we have important information to let you know, we'll put a banner on the website to bring your attention to that. So for example, if a fee increases, a government fee increases, we will make sure, that we'll have a banner on the website. All right. And then the other thing that's important to note is, as you can see, we also share this website with our Morningside team, and they have a different set of instructions, and they use what is called the SSP. So please don't submit your application through the SSP. You always want to submit it through CUIMC. And as you can see, we have the Compass Guide And we will have our training webinar, which will be today's webinar, on the website as well. All right, so let's go over the H-1B requirements. So as I mentioned before, the position needs to qualify as a specialty occupation, and the applicant must hold the required degree in the field of employment. And this is usually not an issue in academia. For example, we have an example of an assistant professor in economics will have a PhD in economics and not in another field of study. So that is important to note. The position needs to be paid by Columbia for at least the prevailing wage set by the Department of Labor. And the employment is specific to the H-1B petitioner and allows compensation only for the employer for the work described in the petition. So that is also very important to note. So you also must inform us of any substantial changes in the employment, such as a change in the end date, employment location, title, duties, sources of funding, because we may need to amend the petition. We would review that and then we would let you know. Another important thing to note is the export control compliance. So per federal regulations, Columbia University must certify as part of the H-1B petition whether the university needs a license from the federal government in order to allow the prospective employee to access certain controlled technology or technical data. So if you have questions about this as you're going through your submitting your H-1B application, you can reach out to Columbia's Office of Research, Compliance, and Training. And that is also in the Compass instructions, which we will go over in a little bit. So Columbia's H-1B petitions must be filed by Columbia's international office. No outside attorneys are permitted. All right, so now we're going to go over before you sponsor. And so we're going to start off with positions that qualify for H-1B sponsorship. So full-time research positions at the associate research level or higher qualify. Postdoctoral and staff associate positions, the position eligibility must be determined by the ISSO on a case-by-case basis. So we do review those. Tenure track faculty, full-time clinical faculty, full-time lecturing positions, and other full-time research or lecture positions in situations listed below. So J1 sponsorship, if the J1 sponsorship is not possible, for example, or if it's not possible because the 24-month bar, because of the 12 or 24-month bar, if there's a permanent residency petition is pending, or the prospective employee currently holds H-1B status elsewhere. So also important to note that administrative positions at a level 14 on the Morningside campus or grade 106 at our campus or higher do qualify. And in order to qualify for the specialty occupation, that candidate must hold that specialized degree that the position requires. So we review those very carefully as well. Part-time positions do not qualify per our university policy. So let's talk a little bit about the length of stay. So H-1B status is generally limited to 6 years, which each petition is 3 years or not greater than 3 years. So typically the initial petition is for 3 years, and then we have an extension for another 3 years. There are certain cases in which we can go beyond the 6 years, and that includes recapturing time. And that is time that is that the individual is outside of the United States and that can be documented. That time can be recaptured, and we could file additional time based on that. And also if they're in a certain part of their PR application, but definitely we would review those very carefully as well. All right, so let's talk about the timeline. All right, so we ask that you initiate the H-1B application 6 months in advance. I know that that's not always possible, but that's the ideal amount of time for us to ensure that we can timely file this application. I do want to mention that we do impose a $500 fee for any late petitions. And what we mean by late is if you submit a petition with a start date 2 months or earlier, we will definitely reach out to you, and either we'll have to impose that fee on you, or maybe you can change the start date to be later. And the reason we're doing that is because we have such a high volume of H-1Bs that it gets really difficult if we get these last minute H-1Bs because it pushes all the other petitions back. So it's just, we have a small team, and so we really appreciate your timely submissions greatly. We know you have a lot on your plate, but we really appreciate those timely applications. And just so you know, the H-1B petition involves processing time also by 2 government agencies, by the Department of Labor. That's the first part of the petition that we must submit the labor condition application. And then it also takes time by USCIS to process and then adjudicate that petition. You may expedite the final step of the petition with an additional premium processing fee, which guarantees USCIS action on the petition within 15 calendar days from the date they receive the petition. So that is also something to note that expedites the petition as well. And right now, regular processing, I checked the processing times, and right now it's about 2.5 months, which isn't so bad, but these processing times can change. So sometimes it really is necessary to use that premium processing as well. All right, so next we're going to go through H-1B versus J-1, the differences to consider. So J-1 visa status may be preferable to H-1B for many non-tenured track positions. Why? Because it allows changes in funding sources, such as grants, personal funds, salary. It also allows remuneration for occasional lectures or short-term consultations incident to status. It maximizes the scholar's time as a non-immigrant before acquiring H-1B status. And so if the J-1 can build their resume, they can do more research and build up their time here in the United States. And then we switch to H-1B after that. That's the ideal situation. It also allows J-2 spouses to apply for employment authorization in the United States. J-1 is also a much faster process. It takes only days for the ISSO to issue a J-1 certificate of eligibility for the scholar to use and apply for a J-1 visa. It carries no cost to the academic departments because, you know, the H-1B government filing fees must be paid by academic departments. So it is a less expensive option to do the J-1. And it can be beneficial regarding income tax. And you can learn more about J-1 on our website as well. All right, so now we're going to go through how to sponsor and extend. So step 1 is to gather the following documents. So again, we're going to click on CUIMC Departments, and that's where you will find all the information you need. So the first step is that we need the information and documentation to verify that the position is appropriate for H-1B status and for the Department of Labor component of the H-1B petition. And so when you log into Compass, you will be prompted to supply this information that we will go through right here. So you will need to show us the appointment or continuing employment letter, which includes the job title, a brief job description, salary information, proposed dates of employment, and the work locations. So this includes all work locations. Okay, it even includes if the individual is working from home. The job posting from RAPS or Talent Link is required. We need to see the CV of the prospective employee, and we need to see the details about the position and the comparable salaries of the position. We also need to see all current immigration documentation of the prospective employee. And this is if applicable, of course, because we want to make sure this person has the required amount of time left on H, or we need to know what is going on. Everyone's situation is different. And so we really need to see all of that immigration documentation. All right, so next you will submit your application. And again, we will click on CUIMC. So you're going to be logging into Compass and you will submit this part of the application. And we will be going through these details in a little bit, but it's very important to note that this step is extremely important to get all this information accurate. So how the application goes is the department submits the H-1B, position details, and comparable wage information, and waits for the ISSO CUIMC to approve. So we will go through this later, but please do not give access to your prospective beneficiary to complete their part of the application, because we must first approve this very important step. Step 2 is the H-1B employee then completes the information once we've approved and uploads the documentation that we require of them. The department then compiles one set of all supporting documents, which I will go over, and completes the deemed export control attestation. And then finally, the department delivers the paper documents and USCIS checks to our office and completes the departmental final attestation. So that's the overview. And now we are going to take a look at gathering the documents and checks for the USCIS fees. And this is where we're going to get into the weeds here a little bit. So the USCIS requires that the petition includes hard copies of the supporting documents. So the department must send one set of the following documents to ISSO CUIMC. So you may deliver these documents to the CUIMC mailroom, but please include your checks that you pick up there with the set of documents so that we have one complete set of documentation. Of course, we understand things happen, so if this is not possible, but please contact us for an alternative arrangement. All right, so now let's go through the documents. The letter of support. The letter of support is extremely important. It paints a picture of the position. It paints a picture of the beneficiary, and it shows USCIS what we are petitioning for. So this is so important, and we have various templates on our website. So as you can see, we have Officer of Research, we have Clinical Research Coordinator or a Staff Associate template, computer position, support staff union position, and we also have a physician clinician position. Now, these might not fit your exact position, but you can tweak these letters so that it fits your petition. All right, so if the employee will have clinical responsibilities, please provide evidence of passing all 3 parts of the US MLE exams, the ECFMG certificate, and the New York State medical license. This is very important. And then in number 3, we are discussing the checks. So you please don't mail the check directly to Vermont. These checks must be enclosed with the petition that we're submitting to USCIS. So we have details on how to complete your check requests. And then, of course, just be sure to take those checks, put them with your application, and submit them together for the petition. All right, we also need the employee's CV and the highest diploma earned in the original language and the transcript. This may be an unofficial transcript, but if the transcript is not available, a statement from the university registrar confirming the area in which the degree was conferred is required. A certified translation, if the diploma is not in English, is required. And we have 2 reputable firms on our website that many people use to get this information. We also need a degree evaluation if the degree was not earned in the United States. So this can hold up things as well if we don't have this. So just make sure that you have that degree evaluation if it's needed. And again, we have some places, some firms that you can get those evaluations. We need the unexpired passport ID page. So unexpired is the keyword here. So just make sure that we have this as well. The I-94 arrival record is also required if the individual is currently in the United States. And then as you can see, in the next bullet points, we have various scenarios. So for example, if the individual is currently in J1 or J2 status, they require specific documents. If they're in F1 status, we need to see specific documents. If they're currently in H-1B or O1, we need specific documents, etc. And then if the H-1B applicant has dependents, as a courtesy, we will submit the I-539 and the I-539A for the children as well. So we do this as a courtesy, but the beneficiary will need to track that part of the application. They will need to track it so that they make sure they don't miss if an RFE is given or anything like that. But we do that as a courtesy for the H-1B applicants with dependents. And there are also, it's also important to note that there are additional documents that are required with the I-539 as well. And we have those listed there. All right. So then you will deliver the complete application to the ISSO, and then we will be waiting for USCIS approval. All right, so as I mentioned before, there is time involved in this. So we will, of course, keep you posted when we have any information about the case. But please just be patient with us and just know that we will let you know when the case has been approved, of course, and then the approval notice will be sent via FedEx to the H-1B beneficiary, or they can come and pick it up in our office. So we can make those arrangements as well. And now I am going to pass the baton to Jimena.
Yes, hi, how are you? I am now going to talk about notifying us of any substantial changes in the employment. Okay, so during the stay of an H-1B employee, there may be some changes that happen, and it is really important that you notify us of any substantial material changes. For example, if there is a new or additional location, for instance, if they change their office location, if it's a new building, we may need to know. If there is a change in duties, a change in title, a change in source of funding, as Gwyneth mentioned earlier, is very important that for an H-1B, they need to receive Columbia funding. So we would need to know this information. Also, if there is a resignation or a termination, we will need to notify that. We need to be notified, and we'll likely need to shorten their H-1B. You can notify us by going to this link, which will take you to Compass. In order to go to Compass and to submit the termination form, you will need the employee's Compass ID in order to attach the form to the e-form to that specific employee. So make sure that when you're doing the termination form that you have the Compass ID with you. Failure to notify us may result in fines and penalties imposed on the university. So this is why it's so important that you do make sure that you're telling us and reaching out to us in any type of situation like this. It could also affect and cancel the petition and the visa status of the employee. So we want to avoid that situation, so make sure that you are notifying us. Now I'm going to talk about extensions for H-1Bs. Before you extend, there is a length of stay. So as Gwyneth mentioned earlier, H-1B is generally limited to 6 years, with each petition not greater than 3. So typically we're getting petitions that are 3 years and then with an extension for the additional 3 years. That is what we generally see, but there are different things that we might get, but that's generally what we're seeing. If you have a situation where they need additional time after the 6 years, please make sure you're reaching out to us to see if they are eligible for additional time and an additional extension, or we may need to look at alternative options for the visa status. Timeline. So the earliest that we can request an extension is 6 months in advance to the start date. Unless there's been some sort of amendment that we need to make, we won't be able to submit an H-1B more than 6 months into the future. That being said, we ask that you do prepare an application as soon as within those 6 months, as soon as possible, in order to get all the materials in as soon as possible. H-1B involves processing time from 2 governments, that is the U.S. Department of Labor and the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, USCIS. Initiating an extension 6 months prior to the expiration of the current status ensures timely filing and adjudication of the petition. Time for the applicant's visa application at a U.S. consulate if needed, facilitating any type of international travel that may be, and averting a lot of unnecessary anxiety for both the department and the individual. You may expedite the final step of the petition if necessary, using the additional premium processing fee, which guarantees the petition within 15 calendar days of the date of USCIS receiving the petition. So how to extend? You will actually just follow the same instructions that Gwyneth had just went over. So it's a very similar process to the H-1B application, but with the exception that you do not need to include the $500 fraud, prevention and detection fee for an extension of an employee who's under Columbia H-1B sponsorship. Because that fee is only a one-time fee as long as they're an employee to Columbia. If you are porting someone, that someone is an H-1B but at another university, and they're changing employers to Columbia University, so they're changing employees, they're porting their age, they are not considered an extension. They would be considered a new employee. And so they would still need to submit all the same documents as a new employee, including the $500 fee. So make sure that you are including the $500 fee for first-time H-1B employees that are from Columbia. Okay. H-1B employees' profiles can be seen by departments who have created the Compass profile. So if you are the department user who created the profile for the employee, you are now extending them, you have two choices. You can either click on the department service overview and select the employee in current cases or past case list, or you can click on the H-1B extension and search for the employee in the lookup international record by inputting their university ID, their Compass ID, and the date of birth. If you were not the departmental user who created the initial profile for the employee and you're now requesting the H-1B extension, or if the profile was created by ISSO, CUIMC, based on a paper application previously submitted, you can request the university ID from ISSO CUIMC via email at our email address. Tip: the university ID is not the uni. This is an ID that is generated by Compass, which is our database that we're using. You're able to use this in order to request the H-1B through Compass. Hadiza is really going to go more into Compass right now and go into the user guide. Hadiza.
Thanks, Jimena. All right, so let's jump into the Compass user guide. And this is a guide where you will find a step-by-step instruction on how to submit an application from the technical perspective, how to work with Compass and in Compass. This is our menu. This is what the guide includes. It's how to request access to Compass first, how to log into Compass, and then how to submit the H-1B employee application and how to submit the H-1B employee extension application. And so we also have links here. Right now we have a link to our previous webinar, and then once this webinar is over in a couple of days, we will have the link, the old webinar substituted with this webinar recording. So let's start with the how to request access to Compass. I know that most of you are already, all of you probably have access to Compass, but if you have new employees, we do have instructions on how they can request access to Compass. They will have to open Compass using this link. I'm not going to open it now so that we can stay on this page. And then they will be prompted to log in with their union password. They will see a screen similar to all other Columbia systems. Because these new employees don't have, or new Compass users, I should say, don't have an access to Compass yet. This is the page that they will see. They will see the request account page, and where they would choose the department option right here and then click on request access. They will be then navigated to this page to the departmental access request form, where they will need to complete their information. And the important two fields here are the campus. Everybody has to make sure that they choose CUIMC Scholars Campus. If you choose anything else, you will not have access to CUIMC international scholars, employees, and so on and so forth. And the at the bottom, you will click request access, and then an automated email will generate to our office notifying us that you requested access. We will approve it. However, we will need first to verify who you are and that you actually need access, because we do get requests like this from postdocs, from international scholars, from PIs who don't actually submit applications. So the more detailed information you put in the form, the better, because then we will see that you are really either a representative of HR or you're a departmental user, administrator, coordinator, who will submit visa sponsorship applications, and that will let us allow us approving your access very quickly. You have to make sure that the submission was successful. You will see this message in the red circle if it did, because the page doesn't really change. You will just see the same fields that are grayed out, but you will see this message on top of the page. So then once you have access, logging in, you will be logging into Compass through the same page. It's the same page essentially, which will take you to this next page. And you will have to log in. Make sure that you click on this button, log in here, not this one. This is for new students and scholars, international students and scholars. So once you click on log in, you again will see this page that we see usually with all Columbia systems. And then you will log in with your union password. Once you log into your union password, you will see your dashboard, which is called Departmental Services, where you have your current cases, your closed cases, the menu on the left. We'll go through it now. We'll skip the recording and let's start with the application. So this is, as I said, this is your departmental services screen with the menu on the left. We'll go through it. So determine if the individual is or was a Columbia affiliate. So with this, what you have to think of is they may be a Columbia affiliate, but what you have to think of in terms of visa sponsorship is whether their visa has ever been sponsored by Columbia University. It's either yes or no. If it's a yes, the person is already in Compass, and either you have the Compass ID already in your current or closed cases, or we can provide it to you. If the person has never been sponsored, if the person's visa has never been sponsored by Columbia University, they may be here on OPT with F1 visa sponsored by another university. They could be a Fulbright. Their visa is sponsored by someone else. They could already be in H-1B status at another university. Visa sponsored is sponsored by another university. If Columbia University has never sponsored a visa for this individual, you will treat that person as a new person in Compass because they do not have a record in Compass. This is how you determine if the individual needs a record or not. If they do, you will enter there. You can depending on the application that you are planning to submit, you will click on the application, right? And then you will enter their Compass ID and date of birth. Alternatively, you could find them if you have already worked on that person in my current cases or my closed cases. So that's how you could, these are the two ways you could find the record in Compass. If you do not have the Compass ID, again, reach out to us, as Jimena mentioned, and we will provide it to you. And then you will be taken directly to the application, or you will be taken to the person's record, and underneath their name, you will see the applications that are available, and you would click on the H-1B application or H-1B extension. And these are the 4 steps that, well, these are the first 2 steps, but we'll go through all the steps later on. And then option 2, if the person's visa has never been sponsored by Columbia University, in that case, you will select the option of adding them as a new person right here. Once you click on that add new person, again, remember that that person may already be working at Columbia University, but we never sponsored their visa, so they do not have a record in Compass. So you will need to add them to Compass as a new person. You will complete this form, their last name, their first name, their date of birth. Okay, there's an important thing that I would like to mention. There is a middle name field. Please do not use it. Because it messes up the record view in Compass. I'm not sure why the software still has this name, because we can't use it anyway in the immigration documents. The US immigration, and actually any passport, has only first name and last name, and that's what we have to do. Exactly as it is in the passport, you put the first name and the last name. And we ask that you put the full name as it is in the passport. If the person has 3 first names, then do this here. If the person has 3 last names, then put 3 last names. And then date of birth, then gender, email address. The email address, that it wouldn't be a Columbia email address for new people. It would be their personal email. For campus, you again always select CUIMC Scholars, requested immigration status, and then for university ID you put no, and for the network ID you put no, again, because these people are new. Even if they already have a uni, you just put no. We'll update the record later on. Again, important things here are campus must be CUIMC Scholars, and please also select the correct immigration status here. The last 2 questions should be no and no. And then you click at add new person, and the system will generate the Compass ID. So now this person will be in your current cases in that section. So you can always go to that record from your Departmental Services dashboard by clicking and going to my current cases. That list in the alphabetical order, just so you know. So then once you are in the person's record, the list of available applications will appear under their name. You will click on H-1B or H-1B extension, and then you will start going through steps. So here are the 4 steps, which Gwyneth already covered. However, I would like to reiterate the importance of, first you complete step 1. And you do not move on to step 2. You do not give access to your scholar to step 2 until we approve step 1. Once it is approved, you give the scholar employee. So this is the first step we went through. The second step would be you will give your scholar access to step 2, and there are 5 forms. The first step will look like this: approved. That's when you can give them access to step 2, and there are 5 forms that they will need to complete: the H-1B employee information, U.S. immigration status and history, dependents, prior visits to the U.S., and then finally they will notify you that they completed their part. How do you give access to step 2 to your scholar? You will go to the H-1B employee information e-form, which is the first form is in step 2. And there you will see give the client access to complete this section. So once you click on this, this is what you will see. You will input their email address right here in the client's email address and click on send email. Compass will generate an automatic email to the scholar with instructions on how to complete their part. Meanwhile, while the scholar is completing step 2, while they're completing their forms, you can proceed to step 3 and complete your portion of the application. You will submit supporting documentation here. You will submit deemed expert attestation. And, please remember that this form requires a second approver. Okay, so this is how it's going to look once the scholar, step 2 is going to look like this once the scholar submits all their forms. Meanwhile, you're working on your step 3. Once the first step approved, the second step is completed, and step 3 is completed by you, you can move on to step 4, which will be all the steps will look like this, completed or approved, and then you will submit the final departmental attestation. So once you submit the final departmental attestation, Compass will generate an automatic email to us saying that we have received a new application. Now, that's why you don't need to inform us that the application was submitted, right? We received that from Compass. I also would like to mention that you can, that e-forms are, they time out. I think it's about 20 minutes when they time out. And so what you have to do is you have to complete each form in one sitting, essentially. If you don't have, the application has guidance on top of it, and some forms have guidance on top of it. So please make sure to read that guidance before you start with each form, so that you have all the documents ready to upload before you proceed with it, so that you don't look for documents or for anything you need while completing the form, the e-form, because then it'll time out and you will lose all data. And another thing I really love and hate to repeat is please do not click on save the default, save as default button. Again, we don't know why this button exists there, because it creates more problems than any assistance or help, at least to us, to our target audience. So just remember not to click that button, because otherwise all the subsequent applications that you are submitting, that you will submit, you will have trouble submitting them. You won't be able to, because the somehow the system saves all the previous information, and it just gets very mixed up, and the system is not able to process new information that you submit. You also have in the application, you should have a button where you can create, view, print, and generate a PDF of everything if you need to. That's for your purposes. You don't need to create those PDFs and submit them to us. It's for your usage. If you need to, you can create a PDF and save the whole application, so-called dossier, to save for yourself. Okay, and then the last step, once you submitted the final attestation, you, again, reiterating, you collect all the supporting documents, required checks, and deliver it to us. So the extension submission is the same, except, there's different documents, and Gwyneth and Jimena already spoke about each separate application, what documents you need. You just choose the extension application in your under the person's name, and you go with that. I would like to also reiterate quickly that if you're porting someone, if someone is in the US in H-1B status but in another organization, even if we're extending their H-1B status, the visa sponsorship by Colombia is completely brand new. So for that person, you would submit a new application. It's not an extension application. It will be a brand new H-1B application for that person, because we've never sponsored their visa before. And then the rest of the steps are going to be very similar, just a little shorter. It's a shorter application. All right, and now I'm going to give the floor back to Jimena.
Yes, you are. Thank you, Hadija. And at this point, we're really going to talk to you about the general tips and reminders. So pretty much everything, things that we've already discussed, but highlight some of the more important detail for you. We want to make sure that you are reviewing the website for eligibility. Make sure that you are choosing the right H-1B application carefully. So again, as we said now, that any new H-1B, even if they've are on are here at Columbia, they may have been in a different status, but they're new to the H-1B, it would be a new H-1B application. If they are on an H-1B, but in another institution and they're new to Columbia, it's a new H-1B application. So an extension would only be for someone who is at Columbia on an H-1B and extending their H-1B with the same employer. Okay. We want to make sure that you are, we are putting in accurate information. Specifically in the H-1B eligibility Part 1 form, we're going to be using this information to determine the prevailing wage. So please keep in mind that this information is critical. So when you're completing that form, to make sure that you are giving accurate information. You should be providing detailed descriptions of the job description, the years of experience required for the position, any supervision that is required for the position, and any special skill sets needed. We do not want skills that are inherent to the position. This does not need to be included. For example, a bioinformatic analyst must have the ability to apply computational methods, which is inherent for the position. Therefore, you don't need to include that. When we're saying special skills, it really should be a requirement knowledge that is high level skill set, or maybe unusual for laboratory equipment beyond the usual scope. So when you're doing that, please make sure that you are including what is exactly needed for the position, so that we can determine the prevailing wage. This will help us from not going lots of back and forth when we are going through Part 1. So that's one of the things that we wanted to highlight. In addition, we want to make sure, and this has been said a couple times, but it just is, it does come up often, is please do not give access to your employee until the ISSO has approved the Part 1. Next slide. Please make sure to follow the support letter template on our website. We have on our website, as Gwyneth had shown you, are templates that we have worked on that for the support letter. And the support letter is like the meat of the application, or as Gwyneth had used, is the picture, the portrait of, it's painting the picture of what the person is doing here at Columbia. So it is very important, and we want to make sure that you're using the right template and using the right format. So make sure that you're looking at the template when you're doing your new support letter. We might update it, so make sure you're looking at it. We ask that you submit at least 2 months in advance of the start date. That would provide us enough time to submit this petition and get the approval or the decisions in time. So please make sure that you are submitting at least 2 months in advance. We cannot submit to USCIS more than 6 months in advance. The first part of doing H-1B is that we are submitting a labor condition application to the Department of Labor, and we cannot do that part more than 6 months into the future. So that is the reason we ask you that to submit an application more than 6 months in the future. And make sure that you're submitting supporting documents in a timely manner. As a matter of fact, when you are doing the last step on the Compass, you are saying that you will be submitting that you've already submitted the hard copy, or you will be submitting the hard copy, and we're expecting you to do it within a 24 hours. What we see sometimes, people are submitting the final attestation, but not providing the hard copy of the supporting documents, which is obviously we need it, and we'll need the check in order to go ahead and move forward. It is one hard copy that we need. We don't need multiple copies. It's just the one. Next slide, please. I get these great applications where I can tell you spent a lot of time stapling or clipping using Post-it notes, we do not need that. I appreciate the effort. Unfortunately, that actually is just gonna make more work. So we just need the documents. We are going to go through all the documents anyway, and USCIS will not accept it with the staples and the clips or Post-it. So we need to just clean it all up anyway. So just provide us with just the hard copy and the documents there. The hard copy does need to be one-sided, printed one-sided. I know that environmentally it'd be nice to be able to do it double-sided, but we're not allowed to accept documents that way. So please make sure when you're providing us the hard copy, it is only at one side. We will need the checks when you are providing us with the hard copy. The check amounts are posted on our website, and we will have like a flag if there are any changes in the check amounts on the website so that you are aware of that. We will generally notify you as well. But yes, make sure that you're looking at what the check amounts are prior to requesting a check and making sure that it is included with the hard copy. And there's no email follow-up necessary. We understand in many of these cases, we want it to go through quickly. But after we submit a petition, it takes time to receive an application, to receive the decision. And then even when a decision is made, we still need to get a hard copy of it. So you don't need to email us with any follow-ups. If you have any questions, always feel free to email us, but no email follow-ups is necessary. We will let you know if we don't have everything. That is for sure. So that's that. Now I'm going to pass this over to Kathy, who is going to go ahead and discuss the documents, government documents.
Okay, thanks everybody. Okay, so what you see in front of you are the different documents that generally are part of the supporting documents to our application. And I thought it was important just to review some of the sections of these forms, mostly the I-797, so you understand it. And it helps us because then we don't get unnecessary documents. So many of you are familiar with these documents, but I wanted, as I said, to point out some of the important details. So the I-797 is issued for many different applications at USCIS. But in 99% of the applications which you submit, we need the approval notice for the H-1B that an individual may, let's say, have been previously an H-1B or currently an H-1B, and you need to submit those approval notices to us. So you need to review the notice so that you make sure that you're submitting the correct notice. So on the right-hand corner, the top right-hand corner of the I-797, it will indicate what that form was issued for. So for instance, it might say receipt notice, approval notice, or I-612 approval notice, which is a waiver approval. I think the words waiver couldn't even be in there. And those would be the typical forms that we would need. So please, be careful in reviewing that section of it. For the most part, we need the approval notice. We don't need receipt notices. There's very few times that we need a receipt notice. We may need a receipt notice if somebody has a pending H-1B or a pending application, but for the most part, the approval notice is what we need. If somebody is also applied for a waiver of their the 2-year rule under their J, then we would need the approval notice of the I-797 approval notice of the waiver approval. And that, once again, will say it on the top right-hand side corner. And then it is also important to note that if somebody changes status in the United States, the I-94 will appear at the bottom of that 797. And actually on the slide, you'll see it there very clearly on the bottom right. But if the beneficiary will receive their H-1B via entry to the United States, that approval notice doesn't have the I-94. It is actually indicates the consulate that the individual will be applying at. So there is a difference in the two forms, and I don't have that one up on the slide for the notification to the consulate abroad. But in that case, the person, when they enter the United States, will get an electronic I-94, which is in the middle of the slide here. And that electronic I-94 is issued once the person enters. So for an individual who attained their H-1B status from abroad, will have essentially two pieces of documents: their I-94 that was issued at the border, and their I-797 that was issued for the notification to the U.S. consulate. And then we have the DS 2019 and the I-20. The DS 2019 is issued to a J1 scholar or student, and the I-20 is issued to an F1 student. We, put these up on the slide here today because many times you're changing an individual from F or from J, and that's what these documents, are. And so it is important to make sure that when you are submitting those documents, review them, and don't send us maybe multiple copies of the same document. Sometimes you have to really review the date of that, when that form was issued, which is in the middle section of the form on the DS 2019, or on the bottom right for the I-20. And that helps us to make sure that we don't have redundancy in those documents. And then lastly, the visa stamp. So the visa stamp, you all know what that looks like. We do not request that as part of our supporting documents, because the visa stamp is only for entry to the U.S. and does not provide any proof of visa status. We may ask for it occasionally in the case where someone may be subject to the 2-year rule or not subject, and we're just trying to determine their subjectivity. So we don't need to have copies of the visa stamp. That's not necessary. Okay, and then we just go to our next slide, which is our team. So we have our contact information, which is our email addresses,